Hi there. So I'm very excited to be here with Dr. Barry Taylor, ND, and go into very interesting questions about detoxing and regeneration. Because when you detox your body, when you really want to regenerate and live long and healthy and prolong your aging period a lot, you really need to detox that your body can get rid of chronic inflammation and really regenerate. I'm very excited to move into a few very deep truths about this. And maybe we start with the gut-liver axis in simple terms and why it's so central to detoxify and regenerate.
Mm, Start with a really good one, huh? The gut-liver axis. So our gut, the lower part of our gut, because our gut is mouth, esophagus, stomach. Stomach goes into a small intestine, large intestine. When you say gut, we mean large intestine. And the liver, it's connected by a big vein, second largest in the body, called the portal vein, and it carries things out of the liver. So that means that the liver is continually processing and deciding what's safe, what's not safe or harmful to the gut. So the digestive tract, what you're referring to as the gut, breaks down food, right? We have enzymes. Um, we have this word in the last many years that a lot of listeners have heard about, microbiome, which means after things are ingested, digested in your stomach, pancreatic enzymes squirt enzymes into the small intestine, then things are assimilated, as in the ultimate goal of nutrition is not just what you eat and how well you digest what you eat, but ultimately it's how well do you assimilate or absorb. So the gut houses these thousands, no, tens, no, hundreds of thousands, no, millions of these bacteria. Wow. These healthy bugs, not strep, not staph, not gonorrhea, not pneumonia, not other kinds of bacteria that don't belong in the body. But the assimilation absorption process is a bacterial, what people know the word, good time to use, probiotic, the live germs that help as things get broken down into a soup, and there are nutrients in that liquid that get absorbed into the bloodstream from your gut. So the gut also acts as a barrier. All these bacterial adaptogens work in terms of what's kept in and out. The liver is both a detox organ that helps your body, our body, deal with chemicals, hormones, medications, the breakdown metabolic aspects of what we've eaten, and helps process our nutrients. And so the liver colon has this relationship that's very essential, because if you're moving your bowels every day, not from what you ate yesterday, but what from you ate 3 or 4 days ago, then when you go to your doctor and your doctor says, "Well, you're constipated," you say, "No, no, no, I go to the bathroom every single day. I move my bowels." But you don't know because you never ate beets or you never ate something to tag what you ate to see when it comes through you. You don't realize that you've got sluggish transit time. S And so if the gut, rub your tongue on the inside of your cheek, smooth, porous. It's like that all the way down, that mucous membrane all the way down your esophagus in your small and large intestine. So if the inside lining of your big colon gets irritated or inflamed, one word that some functional medicine naturopathic doctors use for that is, we call it a leaky gut. Think of like a radiator that's got holes in it. You might not have massive leaks in your car unless you have an electric car, in which case you don't have leaks at all. But if you got an old gas car, then you're losing some fluid in the radiator by slow leaks. Well, let's human body. The gut, because of more toxins, poor transit time, can develop inflammatory compounds. So the microbiome becomes imbalanced. And all of that gets to a burden for the liver. There's the liver colon access, where the liver can get overwhelmed, where if you go to your doctor and do a blood test and your LDH, your SGOT, your SGPT comes back normal, guess what? You don't have hepatitis. You don't have cirrhosis. But you're wondering why you have PMS, or you're wondering why you're menopause, or you're wondering why you have chronic Lyme, or your allergies are getting worse. Well, that is not the way that functional medicine docs look at the liver not doing well and being overburdened by toxins. So, healthy detoxification and regeneration depends both on working so that the liver and colon are working together. We're not looking for liquid stools. We're not looking for anything you'd ever call diarrhea. We're looking for, when you move your bowels today, it's pretty much what you ate 8, 10, 12, 14 hours ago yesterday. Your transit time, because of the fiber and water and many other things, is not super fast, but it's also not 2 or 3 days you're moving your bowels every day, because things are getting pushed out just by size. And then the quality of what you're eating has less preservatives, additives, colors, chemicals, and there's less burden. So that's the introduction to what herbs, what foods, what kinds of things would optimize the liver colon axis as a real linchpin for optimal health and optimal functioning. That's the intro. We have lots more details, but that's a good start.
Beautiful, Barry. Thank you. And what
Well,
actually happens at a cellular level when the body begins to detox, and why so many people do that incorrectly?
why do people do that incorrectly? Yeah, having been detoxing and cleansing for many decades and having guided a few tens of thousands of people through the detox process, I want to be careful, Dr. Lara, to say there's a right way and a wrong way, but there's a way that'll make your body work more efficiently, and there's a way that, oh boy, ouch, so first thing I like to say is that the liver is one of a number of organs in our body. Our skin breathes. In Asian medicine, the skin is thought of as a third lung. We breathe oxygen. We deal with fluids through the kidneys, our colon, the lymphatics in our neck, under our arms, in our groin. The liver is one of several organs that is both a metabolic organ, as I said, because the liver deals with hormones and breaking down estrogens, but the liver also is a major chemical waste station. And there are phases, and some supplements that have nutrients and different herbal combinations that are really classy, elite supplements will say phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 liver detoxing. Phase 1 liver detoxing is things getting broken down. There are nutritional constituents, specific enzymes, certain vitamins, certain minerals that help things get broken down so that the liver then can clear and eliminate it. And those are different phases that the liver ideally does with sweating, drinking more fluid, maybe not beer or wine. Doesn't mean don't ever drink beer or wine. It just means, no, if you're in a cleanse mode, you want to drink some really good water, maybe water that has less chlorine and fluoride or things like that. But the liver is like a major focus. Why do people sometimes do it incorrectly? Well, one answer to that question might be that people are taking herbs or eating in a way that stimulates this phase 1 process. It stimulates the liver's ability to break down the medications that somebody told them they should be on. I'm not saying they should never take medications, but they might be leading up to intermediary toxic compounds that could cause headaches and fatigue, and the tongue gets coated, or your skin breaks out, or you can get irritable and get a little bitchy. Because in Asian medicine, a couple of thousand years ago, they talked about every organ in the body is related energetically to a thought and a feeling. So the feelings of the liver in Asian medicine thousands, couple of thousand years ago, is anger and resentment and being critical, hyper. So doesn't mean everybody, if they're hypercritical or everybody who's a little bit angry all the time, is. But there is this in the English language. You're liverish. There is this accusation, assessment, interpretation. You're really liverish. That means irritable. That means, so one reason that people might be detoxing incorrectly is they're not identifying lead, cadmium, aluminum, mercury, drug residues, recreational drug residues, prescription drug residues. And they might not be aware that they are breaking things down in the liver, phase one, without giving their body or liver enough support to sweat it out, poop it out, pee it out, or help the liver get that stuff into the colon because, oh, yeah, I took this really great beets, really good, carrot juice, really good, but they haven't moved their bowels for 3 or 4 days. And they don't realize that they're getting a bit more absorption of the toxins that they had a really good idea. I'd like to detox or cleanse, but they didn't realize these distinctions of phase one, two, and three. And so they're not supporting maybe the microbiome to have enough peristalsis. Maybe they're doing too much. And I'd say the art of what I've learned, given that about 20,000 people have done my Love Your Body program, and I probably have at least another 10, 15,000 people who didn't want to do this 3-week program. So sometimes I'll say, water is really great, but sometimes you can drown. It's too much. You can't drink that much too quickly. You don't want to do waterboarding, even though, oh, I got to drink more water. That's an extreme. So I think when I said cleansing and detoxing can be need some people, there's an art, not just to the science. Do I have an evaluation working with that individual that they should push harder, stay in there, take more of the herb? If they're having any headaches, skin breakouts, flatulence, gas, bloating, headaches, tongue is coated, if they're getting any kind of detox symptoms, we have a concern. Should we just slow things down, let the body catch up? Or do we just hang in there? Give it another day or two, not another 2 or 3 weeks to deal with your headaches. But, are we gonna, "Oh, you haven't been doing enough exercise. I want you to move and walk more," or, "I want you to do a sauna or a steam more." Get the skin more involved to help the liver. So, a reason that some people doing it incorrectly or not quite as good is because maybe they're trying to remove the toxins too quickly, and they don't understand that artful, well thought out, ideal cleanses is about an efficient transformation that's safe about eliminating. It's not just, oh, I'm only going to do juices for 3, 5 days or a week or 10 days, or I'm going to do colonics, assuming somebody wanted to do colonics. It's so sometimes less is more. And sometimes I will say, are you okay giving this another day or 2 or 3? But I want you to please take something to add some more bulk, or I want you to add 2, 3, 4 stalks of celery a day, or 1 or 2 or 3 apples, or 1 or 2 or 3 big carrots. I think you need some more fiber, and you're gonna get to the other side, but I don't want you to have to hang in here for 5 days. Those are a couple of reasons why some people are doing some good things, missing that they're not sweating, they're not exercising, they're not drinking enough water. They're on a really good, wow, that's great. You haven't moved your bowels in 3 or 4 days and you're wondering why you have a headache. Okay. Okay. I know that formula you're taking is fabulous, but I don't wanna give you senna to have you, have any griping, but there's turkey rhubarb, or there's cascara, or there's something that your colon peristalsis might need. Ginger, cayenne, something. So that's a couple of thoughts about why Some people trip over, "Oh, this is harder than I thought it was gonna be," and for some people, yes, it's unbelievably more easy than they thought. Their arthritis, their joints, their flexibility, their menstrual cycle, their eczema, their headaches, their energy, their sleep, all sorts of things. They're creative when so for some people, the positive results of a 3, 5, 10-day, 2-week cleanse can be unreasonable to explain. That's true.
Beautiful. Thank you, Barry. You also mentioned that the liver is responsible for estrogens and testosterone, and how is the liver directly impacting the hormone balance in men and women?
Yeah, we could do a 3-hour talk on this. I'm gonna do this in 5 or 6 minutes. So different than the lungs or the skin or the kidneys, which are mostly eliminative, helping the body discharge, filter. The liver is this organ that does 3,000 functions. I often to say to people when I say, "Do you have any aspects that are spiritual?" "No, I'm an atheist." I say, "Well, let me talk to you about the liver, because the liver does 3,000 functions." And it's interesting to wonder how the liver s some wisdom created the liver. It might have you shift. It's a joke. Like somebody's doing a lot of creating, or some the liver does 3,000 different functions. And some of those functions are what are called central regulatory roles to balance hormones. We're not talking about turning glucose into stored sugar, glycogen. We're not talking about biochemical process transamination, moving one amino acid into another amino acid. Wow, just changing it. Wow, amazing. I'm telling you, it can turn atheists into believers. But one of the real important things is that the liver affects hormones, and it breaks down and clear excess hormones. So for women, estrogen has 5 different names. None of the listeners has to know those 5 names that you and I learned in medical school. So the liver, and where it happens is not in the ovaries. The ovaries make estrogen, but the liver metabolizes estrogen. The liver metabolizes testosterone. A third very, very important hormone not made by the ovaries or testicles is cortisol. Cortisol is made by the adrenals. AD in Latin is above, renal, another name for kidney. AD above the kidney is a little P-shaped gland called the adrenals, which makes adrenaline. Another name for adrenaline is cortisol. So hormones are converted so that they can be efficiently and effectively used by our male and female bodies. And if they're not metabolized well, broken down into different stages, it's not just a woman has testosterone made differently than a man, and a man has estrogen. As far as I know, I don't think I have any ovaries, but I have some estrogen, maybe not as much as you, hopefully. But our body needs to use estrogen and testosterone in ways that are critically important. That's another webinar, another seminar. So the liver function can be impaired if the estrogen gets built up and the liver doesn't have lipotrophic factors that are certain nutrients that help the liver break estrogen from estrogen to estrone, different aspects that are simplified molecules that are not full head on estrogen. Well, what would do that? Well, if you drink too much coffee, if you have too much sugar, if you have too much antibiotics in your body, maybe if you have eggs or cheese or meat that is from cows or animals that were given estrogens, then those eggs and that cheese and that meat might have more estrogen than your female body or my male body is making. So my liver can't handle all that extra estrogen. And the same thing could be said about testosterones and cortisol. So one of the impacts can be on fertility. So there's studies about when the liver isn't able to deal with a woman. Premenstrual symptoms can be rather uncomplicated. Sometimes it can be complicated, but breast tissue is very estrogen sensitive. The brain can be very estrogen sensitive. Sugar cravings, irritability, patience, mental focus, all sorts of emotions, breast tenderness, bloating, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days before a woman starts to flow and menstruate. That can all be as simple. Sometimes it's a little bit more complicated, if a woman's got PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or if, there can be other issues. But sometimes is this issue is, you think you could do a little mushroom tea, or you think you could, go from 4 or 5 cups of tea, coffee to, 1 cup of coffee. Or here's a bottle, or here's a forest in a bottle herb, or, here's something that's got lipotrophic factors that help you with phase 1, 2, 3 liver breakdown. And before we say cut back on some of your regular store-bought chicken and please only buy organic free-range chicken, let's just see if we can help your liver to break down estrogens. And it for a man, it can relate to sperm quality and motility and libido. The liver, very important, especially if it's dealing with too much alcohol, too much fried food. It's burdened by too many medications, as necessary as maybe sometimes they are. But if there are impaired detox pathways, then estrogen levels, testosterone levels can impact a man and a woman in many, many ways. So the liver is not just a detox organ. It's a hormone regulator. It's a metabolic filter. It's a fertility partner for women. And a lot of that with formulas like farce in a bottle formulas and other ways of eating can really help hormone balance in conjunction with food. And it's wonderful to turn people on, women of all ages. It can help with menopause, it can help with conception, it can help with pregnancy, it can help with, "I'm not interested in getting pregnant, thank you very much, but boy, wouldn't it be great to just have my cycle come and go and me not dread, 'I gotta stop running, my breasts are so tender.'" Well, that'd be great.
Agreed, and it's much more than that. It's also just the energy of being fertile, because our body can be fertile, but when we are fertile and when we're really healthy and in our power, which most women are not, that are on the pill and all these other things that we're doing that we're not even thinking about, we can't birth energetically the projects that we're supposed to birth. So it's also
Yep.
just about to be in the fertile energy of your power. And when you are in your power, you are unstoppable in your success.
Yeah.
And when you really become your true authentic self and you really get activated in this way, and the first step is to get really healthy in your body and
Mm,
connect to your body and really understand it and feel it. And then through that, it's a very beautiful entry to really connect to your soul and your energy and really step into your authenticity and get
mm,
activated in your success. And
beautifully
that's what
said.
we want, and we want to be
Yeah.
in that fertile energy.
Yeah. Great, I love it. Thank you for saying it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. And I mean, we know that it's a triangle of body, mind, and spirit that is creating our experience of life, and that it's far more than just the body, and that it's really about rebuilding all of these aspects from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual. And I'm very interested what you think of how herbs are really supporting this process of rebuilding the body.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great question. There's so many possible answers. I mean, nature has just given us so many gifts to learn about. We could roll it up into lifestyle, we could roll it up into food. Um, the way you're asking the question, the first thing I want to say is healing is both removing interference and rebuilding and restoring function. And lucky for us, there are herbs that do both of those well. Maybe there are a couple of herbs we could think about. that do both, but it's good for people to know that if we wanna cut down certain foods, it doesn't mean stay away from that for the rest of your life. It means your body is there are molecules in that food that's interrupting something, and it doesn't mean never take that drug, and it doesn't mean that drug was ever bad for you. But the idea that people can learn about is what does the concept remove interference mean? Again, one way is to think of the organs of elimination like a team: skin, lungs, liver, kidney, colon, lymphatics. And then what does the rebuild and restore function mean as we are self organizing and regenerating as the obstacles are reduced? Well, so common interferences might be toxins, environmental, or they're not from the outside. They're not from how polluted the water and foods and air is. It's our body has metabolic waste that if our lymphatics and lungs and skin and, I hardly ever sweat. Anybody ever suggest to really look at your thyroid more carefully because you never sweat? So some toxins are endogenous, not exogenous. Some are from your body's had trouble breaking things down, and then given your liver, you're not gonna get hepatitis or liver cancer, but given your history of PMS, or you don't have PMS, your allergies, or you've had lots of chronic bronchitises, or you've had Lyme that you've really stumbled and had troubles getting over. Some toxins are from the inside. It's not just the air. You live in the middle of the city and you haven't gotten enough negative ions. Number 2, some interferences are chronic stress physiology. So somebody's living too much on cortisol. Their body's getting pushed too much acidic. Some people, they're living in, even if it's low levels, different than moderate to high levels. Third area of interference might be inflammation. And, this idea when I talk about inflammation, we're saying, it's part of the body's wisdom and brilliant the way we're put together for us to, in acute injury, acute infection, to have the inflammatory process rush in to wall things off and get certain cells that weren't there. It's not like inflammation is bad, even though, wow, it's a bit of a buzzword these days in health circles. But I wanna make sure people appreciate that when I'm talking about interference, inflammation, we're talking about chronic inflammation because of too much sugar, too much coffee, too much acidic foods. You got low levels of some virus or some low level of an allergy that's chronic. It only creeps up 2 or 3 times a year when it's pollen or trees. But your body is way too acidic, and now you're operating in a chronic inflammatory state, different than we all, if you fall down and bruise your knee or hurt your elbow or something, or you get sick, you're gonna have inflammation that your body ideally knows how to deal with, but not keep going on for months and months and months and months. There are nutrient deficiencies that are interferences. And, one reason people like to consult with me or doctors like me is because one of my basics is to let's evaluate all your vitamins and all your minerals and all your amino acids and your essential fatty acids, which a lot of people have read about zinc or they've read about essential fatty acids and how omega-3 fish oils can be really helpful, but they've never got it evaluated for their body. And in some of the other questions worth saying now, a common interference is microbiome imbalance. That as food gets pushed to the sidewalls, I had people rub your tongue on the inside of your cheek. If your bowel function is sluggish, even if you haven't identified yourself as, oh, I know I'm constipated, I don't move. Well, no, you don't identify yourself as constipated because you move your bowels every day. But your microbiome imbalance might be, because at some point you had 2 or 3 UTIs, urinary tract infections, you went on Keflex or some antibiotic. I'm not telling you you could or should have done that with a homeopathic or cranberry. I mean, maybe you could have, but you handle it the way you handled it. But now, 3, 4, 6 months later, your probiotics, all those tens of thousands, millions of healthy bacteria are having difficulty repopulating because you've stirred up the bacterial, fungal, candida balance in your gut. And you don't understand that wine 3 times a week, or, a couple of shots of vodka twice a week, or beer, which has got yeast, or a lot of sugar, is all activating the candida in your gut. And now, whether you do have vaginitis that's chronic or you don't, you have a different interference that maybe, yeah, maybe you do have SIBO, maybe you do have Crohn's or colitis, but maybe somebody hasn't really identified that you've got an active, buried candida systemic yeast infection, and that's can be a pretty major interference. So that's some of the common ones that can block when somebody just goes to the health food store and gets a probiotic that I wouldn't give to my dog or a cat because it's got 2 or 3 billion units, and it's not every car that has tires or a steering wheel is a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. So in a world of probiotics, I mean, there are really elite ones, 5, 6, 8 in the world, 10 in the world, I don't know, but not everyone that you can get, and I won't mention store names, that wouldn't be appropriate, but not anyone that you could get in a pharmacy or in any health food store. So some people are doing their best, but they're having difficulty removing interferences, which then makes it very difficult for them to rebuild and regenerate. Rebuilding includes knowing how to replenish nutrient weaknesses. I don't use the word deficiencies because in an allopathic medical model, a deficiency of vitamin C is scurvy. And I've been practicing for close to 50 years, and I don't think I've ever seen scurvy. But I've seen people who bruise easily and whose gums bleed easily. I've seen people who have difficulties sleeping and dealing with stress, and I look at what they eat and I think, given that you don't have a lot of tahini and sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds and whole grains, I think maybe your sleep, you could use some B vitamins. But I've never seen anybody with beriberi, you know. I've never seen any. So I have to, when I'm doing talks in hospitals and clinics and medical, I have to be careful of the words that I'm using. Nutrient deficiencies, not classic insufficiencies, can be very, very important in why you're not rebuilding tissue as ideally. Now, here's a great factoid for any of your trivia players out there. Every cell in your body turns over every 7 years. Do you know that? Every 7 years, every physical cell. So, well, if I have cancer now, why don't I just wait 7 years? In 7 years, I won't have cancer. Well, the question is, what are we using to build those new cells? So, tissue repair, hormone rebalancing, mitochondrial support is really important. And to get to the end of the question is, how do herbs help the rebuilding and the detoxing? Well, there are herbs that support liver detoxing pathways that help phase 1 and phase 2. They improve bile support. They help bind things that are toxic, that can cause what's called oxidative stress. There are herbs that can dramatically, turmeric, ginger, reduce inflammatory states that tissues are inflamed. There are herbs that can rebuild and restore and provide different nutrients or phytonutrients in the stem, in the root, in the leaf of the herb. There are herbs that support specific tissues. There are herbs for the ovaries that don't have much effect for the lungs. There are herbs for the liver that don't have much effect for the lungs. I'm a book collector. I'm speaking to you from my office surrounded by more than many hundreds of books. Maybe we'll do a little video to show all the books that I've got on the shelf. And some of the books that I've collected are from the 17 of them are herbal books, long decades before what we know now. And people were mixing these elixirs and knew that it had an effect on certain organs, and certain herbs had effect to build the nervous system, not just to help anxiety and depression, but that there's a force, an energetic force in herbs, in the gifts of nature that can create the conditions where the body can heal itself more effectively. And that's the introduction for us to share with people that want to follow us and learn with us about. So tell me more about these herbs in Forest in a Bottle. Tell me more about the charge, the negative charge, the positive charge, the energetics, and we will have time to go over other ways that herbs are great for detoxing and rebuilding.
Yes, because plants are far more than just the chemical structures. You also have the energy, the memory, the epigenetic structure of plants. We have a lot of studies on animals that if animals grow up in a world and without love, they rats get born in a laboratory without a mother, whatever it is, the epigenetic code of the DNA is changing. And
Mm.
actually a lot of genes are silenced. We also study this in humans when children grow up in a traumatic environment, genes are just silencing down. And it is that you have a genetic code and that what is expressed in your whole body and your whole expression of being is not what is there. It's like 20% is activated, and that can be reversed through love. Love and harmony is the activator of our DNA. And that is also happening in the plant world. So when we consume plants from a memory that is actually healthy, from a healthy ecosystem that is operating from harmony and love and fertility, which is the main baseline of nature. It's just the main frequency and the main state of nature. That's why we get fertile in nature and we birth babies in nature and we get beautiful ideas. All the geniuses around the world know that when you do a walk in nature, most geniuses got their incredible ideas there. And to really connect to that, and you can do that by living in nature, by walking through nature, by doing vipassana there, or to really consume natural plants that come from that environment.
Mm.
And when we look at the chemical structures, maybe we can go a little bit more into the details how the compounds really play a role in the cellular communication, the immune intelligence, and repairing different tissues and regenerating them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Boy, well said. So these plants have what are called phytochemicals that act like biological signals. So when we talk about cellular communication, these phytochemicals, phyto as in plant, they exactly what you said, influence gene expression. They carry information, and there is an intelligence that is complicated. Our job is to make it simple, besides just drink your green juice. But this immune, naturopathic joke, if in doubt, health or disease begins in the colon. Our immune system, there's all sorts of immune. We think of the immune system in terms of lungs, upper respiratory. Well, the immune system is very, very related to your microbiome in your mouth, the microbiome in your gut. And all this intelligence is helping regulate to not overstimulate the immune system and to allow the immune system. Think of the immune system like a protective net of what it allows in and out. And there's so much to be said about how herbs stimulate collagen production and stimulate cellular regeneration and stimulate new blood cells, and how it protects against harmful environmental oxidative damage and chronic inflammation. Remember, chronic inflammation, not just acute. So herbs, plant compounds, roots, stems, flowers, whatever the medicinal part of the plant is, act less like drugs. For years, "Oh, Dr. Taylor, we hear that you, don't like drugs. You're like a drugless." No, no, that's not true. I don't dislike drugs. The drugs that I use are kinda what nature has made as opposed to what somebody synthetically made, and it's not like nobody should take ever a synthetic drug, but I like the phrase, "Plants compounds are less like drugs, they're more like teachers." They kinda guide the body back toward balance and innate intelligence. The idea that we humans have some innate intelligence, can we learn to get out of the way? Can we learn to let energy flow? Something similar to the acupuncture Asian model, slightly different in Japan, China, Korea, different variations of needling people. But the idea of putting a needle in a point on a channel that's called a meridian is to open up the flow of energy. So the idea, not just that this herb is really good for the ovary, this herb is really good for the lung, this is really good, and this one works both for the kidney and the colon. Okay, double good. But the idea that it's also, as you beautifully said, opens up the body to heal itself as well as targeting specific tissue, mm, is part of what I've been learning for the last number of decades. And while I'm still breathing, I'm sure I'll be learning a lot more of how does that happen? But it's pretty inspiring when you get to see it work with people who are just throwing something against the wall, a drug that's helped them 20, 30, 40, 50%, but there's a big gap in their depression. There's a big gap in their digestive or their eczema or their breast cancer or something. Even though that might have helped, it really didn't encourage and catalyze what you and I would call a transformational process.
Yes.
Herbs can be used shotgun. I've kind of delicately learned to use them if somebody's really uncomfortable, if somebody's really in a lot of pain, and I can ask them permission, can we look a little deeper together so we really start treating cause, not just the effects?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's very beautifully said, and it's what pharmaceuticals usually do. They treat the effects and they don't treat the cause. And what I came to understand in healing really deeply and profoundly and really reach these states of healing, that every disease state is not natural and that we can get back into balance and into harmony, which is the decision towards life and fertility and creation every single time, and that not nothing that is disease state is natural in any way, and that there's always a deeper cause, and that plants are really beautiful teachers to really find the cause and solve the cause, and that's how it can really be used sustainably, and it's not only treating the effects. And pharmaceuticals can give you a strong relief in the moment, but if the cause is not addressed, it will come back in a different form. And if what you
Usually.
do every day and how you grow every day and how you really step into your highest success and how you become a big pillar and strong pillar of your community, how you really create your worlds and your structures, it's really important to be in balanced, harmonic, healthy states to really be able to express that. And to come back to the microbiome, how is the microbiome balance really translating in the processes in the body of systemic inflammation, and how
Yep.
does it shift the mood, the energy, and the mental clarity?
Yeah. Simple question that's, again, worthy of more than a 5-minute answer. I'll try to chunk it down. So, when the microbiome, AKA the internal environment of our large intestine, things have come down the pike, esophagus, out of the stomach, pancreas squirts in some enzymes, small tube, back and forth horizontally inside. Then there's the ascending, transverse, descending colon. Things are pretty much digested, hopefully. We've gotten things broken down, hopefully, that things are ready, hopefully. to be absorbed. Well, when the microbiome, that internal environment of the large intestine, is balanced, and the small intestine can be out of balance or in balance as well. So there are beneficial compounds, short chain fatty acids that are anti-inflammatory, that heal the gut, that get initiated in the gut. So I said a few moments ago, in response to our last question, you said, I came back and backed you up. There's a lot of the immune system that's a lot more than what's going on in our throat and our lungs and our lymphatic system. There's an enormous amount going on in our gut. So when the microbiome is balanced, it it has a gut barrier integrity, that's able to communicate with the rest of the immune system in the rest of the body, and therefore supports neurotransmitter production where there's a gut liver brain connection. And I always, before, in my natural therapeutic professional work, where doctors thought there was a liver brain relationship, why some people in their 80s were less cognitively aware. And they would say things like, oh, well, they don't have cirrhosis and they don't have liver cancer, but, they've got a really old liver. Well, now 40 years later, there's so much research on the relationship between the gut, the liver, and the brain. So when the gut, liver is well, it really affects cognition, mood a lot. When there's the word we haven't used, so let's use it, dysbiosis. Dis as in dysfunction, bio as in life. When there's some disruption of the, I was going to say cacophony, but it shouldn't be a cacophony. It could be a delightful orchestra. It could be a symphony, not a cacophony. When all of the organisms in your gut, when the fungus and the candida is in balance with the different strains of bacteria in your gut, you have healthy biome. When things are dysbiotic, and you have what's called a leaky gut, you have more permeability. Things are getting absorbed that you don't want them to get absorbed into your bloodstream. Undigested food, toxins, bacterial fragments get into the bloodstream. And this triggers all sorts of systematic and systemic inflammation that can affect the immune system, digestive function, joints, skin, brain, hormonal PMS, toxic metabolic production shifts, harmful bacterias, endotoxins, compounds that do cause what we think of as liver diseases. But there are a lot of people who, functional medicine, naturopathic doctors, think, wow, given what you tell me happens when you eat a lot of meat, cheese, and French fries and fried food, and given that your SGOT, PT, SGOT, LDH, your liver enzymes are fine, I'm just thinking, I want to run some other liver tests for you because I don't think your liver's running well. And that could be why, you told me your parents, were kind of losing their a little bit mild to moderate dementia in their set. You're in your early 50s, mid 50s. You're concerned if you're going to turn out like them. Let's work on your microbiome. Let's work on your liver, but not just because I don't think you've got liver disease. I think there's some impaired functions. Remember I said 3,000 functions? I think you got a number of them, whether you're a woman with difficult menopause, having hot flashes and night sweats, whether your libido's in the toilet, there are things we could be doing. Doesn't mean our goal is that you have more bacon, cheddar cheese, hamburgers, but if you had one a month or two a year, unless you said, I don't want to eat that at all, but it's not about never having a French fry. Now, I have some clients that will come to me and say, why are you telling me to have a French fry? I'm not telling you to have a French fry. I'm saying not having them is not the solution. Rebuilding your liver function is, so that you might need to do things that help your your microbiome, that your brain will work with GABA, serotonin, and dopamine better, or your brain fog and fatigue and anxiety and reduced mental clarity might improve, or your overall energy might really change. It might not just be that you're mild to moderate gastritis, burping, heartburn. Oh, you don't have any of that, but you pretty regularly, not every single day, but throughout the week, you've got some mild flatulence and bloating. It's kind of just your middle name but right now. So, well, I could give you some enzymes. That's true. I could also ask you to not, have iced beverages while you're eating and always, have one hand on your fork and one hand on your glass and see what reaches your mouth first. That might help. And I might give somebody an enzyme to help with digestion. But if somebody's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, this hasn't been happening for weeks or months, this could be happening for years, doesn't mean they're going to get colon cancer. But the idea that helping their microbiome doesn't just help their digestion, it's going to help inflammation, brain function, overall virility. And as you said earlier, your body's at more physical peace. You might be a whole lot more creative. You might deal with life's challenges with more equanimity just because you're less distracted burping or passing gas. That's an interesting, we should write a paper of that. Pass less gas and be more compassionate. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Agreed. And it's so interesting for me in my personal experience of life. Like, I really started to take these elixirs in the rainforest, and I really started to get my microbiome organized and did a whole cleanse and a whole microbiome organization with
Yes.
the microorganisms from the most ancient ecosystems of the world that we're using. And I got off the pill. And these were the two main things that I did. And now I'm reaching a completely different level of success in my life. And
Yep.
this is like really the most important things that I personally did in my life to really shift my whole experience of life. And I really want to share this with people my age
Yeah.
that are not really sick, that are not really having issues or think the little issues they have are normal and it's just part of life. It is not. And when you really start to improve these things, you can get to a completely different level of success.
Mm.
And otherwise, it's not really about your workload that you have to really shift something. But when you really start to work on yourself emotionally and physically, you really start to reach a completely different level of success and energy and power to navigate. And to
True.
go to the next thing, to also really listen to your body and be
Mm.
connected to your soul and your body
Yeah.
and really feel what you truly are and who you really are. Most people don't know who they are. They think
Yeah.
they do, but they don't. And we are a soul with a body that is expressing in this very specific, unique way. And we are also unique to really connect to that. And our body gives us messages before we get out of our balanced state into disease states when there is a mismatch of energy flow. And I want to ask you how people can learn to recognize them scientifically and intuitively.
Mm. 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 Yeah. That is that's a good one. That's a really good one. I've noticed in my life, as you just said, I'll say it a little differently, but we're going to say the same thing. The doors of my perception, both through my senses and through what poorly might be said, my intuition, have so radically shifted. And it's been a passion, it's been a hobby. I've had a lot of teachers, I've had a lot of practice. I'm far from perfect. What I've learned is that the body almost always gives us early functional signals before there's structural disease that develops. Some of these signals might be subtle, some of them might be intermittent, some of them might be easy to dismiss or normalize. But in what I call the McDonald's state of mind, where despite you and I growing up with some distance between us, not just in years, but in different places on the planet, there's still a lot of common denominators of you have a headache, you take an aspirin. You have strep throat, you take penicillin. You have a menstrual cramp, you take Midol. You have an arthritic pain, you take butazolidine. There's just like pharmacies might look nicer in Germany and France than they do in New York City and LA and Boston, and they might also have more herbs in Germany and France and other countries. But there's a way that the lead conversation for decades of people having symptoms is what can I take for that symptom? And so the idea that in Love Your Body programs, after doing a lot of internal and external healing work, I would design a program where one of the first pillars is how to be more mindful and be able to witness what the body is saying before you jump to what does it mean. When patients are sitting in front of me or I Zoom people all over the world and I do a review of systems, sometimes I'll ask somebody about their eyes and their ears and their nose and their throat and their lungs and, body parts. And it's amazing how some brilliant, really smart people don't know how to report on what they're witnessing because they think that their opinion of what it means is what's happening. And so the distinction between being able to be mindful, observe, witness, one function, and then come up with possible interpretations about what it means, I have learned personally and having coached, guided, led many thousands of people in learning that process is an art and a science to be able to witness things and then come up with, I have an interpretation about what I think that means. So early signs before somebody's got a disease might be somebody's energy of when things are not balanced. They might be fatigued, and somebody might say, well, you know how old you are. Well, you're having your menstrual cycle. Well, you just got divorced. Well, you just moved, and people might have a litany of why they're fatigued. That's different than, well, you've been drinking 3 cups of coffee a day and your adrenals are a little bit burnt out and your allergies. So there are common early signals about that people could, and I'm going to list a few, learn to be able to see without making meaning of what they think the reason is they have that. I'm not saying I don't want them to come up with a meaning. Common early signals: energy, digestion, bloating, gas, irregular bowel movements, mood, irritability, anxiety, low mood shifts, ongoing depression. Early signal: interrupted sleep, not easy to get to sleep, not easy to stay to sleep, waking up tired, not waking up into, oh my God, another day to contribute, another day to fulfill my life purpose, another day to feel gratitude. Oh boy, can't wait to get my cup of coffee this morning. So sleep and overall energy, cognition, brain fog, reduced clarity, body sensations of, are you feeling tense? Do you sweat? Do you have any kind of body sensations? How you're seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling. Scientifically, as a doctor, as a functional medicine doctor, as a naturopathic doctor, if I'm looking at, well, what are some of the science, what are some of the physiological things that clients using farce in a bottle formulas, some basic ones that they might want to learn about might be blood sugar regulation. Are you hypoglycemic? Are you pre-diabetic? How's your nervous system? Are you riding the wave of push, 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 push? Boy, I can relate. A lot of people, I once was one of them, like an adrenal high. If I slow down, I might be bored. I don't know if I want to slow down. Slow down? I like doing things. I like being well, I remember when I started really seriously meditating, or at least I was trying to meditate. I wouldn't say I was meditating because I couldn't shut my mind off. It was quite a challenge for me. And I remember one of my early meditation teachers said, "So you're having a difficult time turning your mind off?" I said, "Yeah, I don't know if this is meditation. I'm thinking about, did I flush the toilet, and what am I going to eat, and what am I going to do tomorrow morning, and did I call that person?" I got all these thoughts. That can't be meditation. And he said, "Well, what do you think meditation is?" And I remember, this is many, many years ago. I said, "Well, I think it's like not thinking." And I remember this man Larry, now a world famous teacher, I remember him saying to me, "Meditation is not stopping thinking." I said, "Not?" I said, "Good, because I think if I wasn't thinking, I'd be bored." And you know what his response was, Lara? His response was, "Being able to hang out in boredom is a very high place." So I understand that nervous system regulation, when somebody can appreciate the gifts of dropping down music, chanting, tai chi, massage, lovemaking, tantra, where the parasympathetic nervous system is a lot more on than the adrenal push of go, 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 takes, for me, a lot of my clients, it takes some welcoming, like, "I like just sitting in a hot tub. Wow. I like getting really fabulous body work. Would you do me a favor and not talk to me? Because while I'm getting my body work done, I just don't wanna yak," as opposed to laying there and having a conversation with the practitioner about their life and my life. So, dysregulation in the nervous system and how to get people to drop down with herbs sometimes, with other lifestyle practices, to get the nervous system to be, I don't like the word control, for somebody to have more choice about neutralizing sympathetic domination, the tyranny of the left mind. Oh my God, left brain, not left mind, left brain. How to work with somebody to open up portals in their right brain. Microbiome imbalance, inflammatory signaling, detox load. There are functional disturbances that are physical that can be tracked. Regarding intuition that you mentioned, there's a lot of ways that people, through their sensations, listening, seeing, touching, hearing, can tap into what you and I are somewhat, if I can speak for you, enamored with, which are called fluctuations of energy. That's not just, I used to pay young kids so I could sit in the front of a roller coaster. If they were in front of me, I'd give them $5 so I could sit in the front row because I love the thrill of nothing in front of me on a roller coaster. I still do if you ever wanna go on a roller coaster with me. It's very different than sitting in back. So there's a lot about rhythm, appetite, cycles that can help you psycho-spiritually. So it's not just physical, scientific, concrete messages, but we can be taught how to learn in different dimensions, different levels of energy. And you and I, can work with people so that they can track patterns. They can, look at the timing of things. Does this happen more with the full moon? Does this more happen at night when you're tired? Does this happen first thing in the morning when you get out of bed? Are there lifestyle things that there are certain times where you do feel more connected, and there are other times where you feel less connected? Another way of saying all this, to wrap up, is sometimes symptoms are blessing in disguise. It's not just using this great herb to get rid of symptoms, which for some clients, them getting less symptomatic is a gift, and let me help you be more comfortable. Absolutely. But sometimes it's not one headache. It's not one strep throat. It's these symptoms are early communication signals that you could ask, what's the blessing in disguise here? What is it that my body is really trying to offer me? And that's scientific. Is it adrenal, microbiome, liver, hormone, estrogen, brain, B vitamin? There's a list, not an infinite list, but there are legitimate questions. More sugar, less sugar, not related to 6 cups of coffee a day, standing up, racing, talking on the phone while I'm driving, multitasking, or is it related to something else? It might be related to some of those things a little, but it's related to something's going on with your brother, something's going on with your mother, somebody's passing away. Your job that you love is stretching you in too many different directions, and it's putting stress on your physical body, but the answer is really more, you gotta create some boundaries or slow down. So, it's sometimes the questions we ask and how are we listening to the answers not as, "Yes, that's the truth," but that answer is a possibility, and can we ask it again and see is there something else as opposed to, "I think it's this." Well, stay open to that. That seems to resonate, and then ask a follow-up question. "Is it anything else? Is that 100%, or is that only 50%? And it's 50%, I need to get some more validation from my boss. I need to appreciate my main partner more. I need to ask for validation more." So, again, lots for us to learn and share in the world of the integration of symptoms and communication.
Yes. Beautiful. And maybe as the last thing, as you already beautifully described, if someone really wants to start now to restore their health and step
Mhm.
into their highest authenticity and their highest abundance and focus and really wrap up their life and really
Yeah,
get into their highest level of health and success to really show up in the most beautiful way possible.
yeah,
Also, of course, related to beauty, but that's just the surface. And we're making sure that we are really building beauty from the bottom up and that we're making sure that everything is not fake but real and fertile and ready to blossom. And what should they focus on first? Is it the
mm,
gut, the liver, or something more
mm,
foundation? Where can they start?
right. Start where you are at. Fabulous, super. I'm gonna start copying your words. Epic! Everyone's different. So one of the things that I have come to love in the last 2 to 3 decades is to teach the difference between health and healing. So the first half of my book is on health, the second half is on healing. So the answer to your question, Dr. Lara, is first, if somebody is asking where to start and they're wondering, I wonder if where to start has to do with my physical body, my bodysuit. It's a possibility. They could ask, is it related to my digestion? Is it related to, I'm overloaded, overburdened? 2, is it related to whether I do it for 3 days, 5 days, 12 days? That's strategy, but let me just g does it resonate? It's related to I'm toxic. Do I have heavy metals, too many drugs, recreationals, prescription? 3, it these could all be yeses or a few nos. It's only this and not that. 3, is it hormone related? Hormones are such powerful signalers. So if I'm looking at where do I start and I'm dealing with a headache, I'm dealing with weight, I'm dealing with depression, I'm dealing with allergies, is question hormone and not just sex hormones like estrogen or testosterone, but am I dealing with some level of burnout? Whether I'm on 3 or 4 or 5 cups of coffee or not, am I somebody who's just push, 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 push? This guy's talking about sympathetic dominance, too much cholesterol. I'm not gonna get cancer of the adrenal. Don't think so. But, it is a factor that's caused me to be low blood sugar, and now I'm in a hypoglycemic. So fourth, I would say, is where I could start to find out, are my hormones imbalanced, not just estrogens, but this adrenaline, parentheses, cortisol.
Yes, I
And the
also
fifth
agree.
place physically is there something, did I have an injury? Did I have an accident? Did I have a concussion? Did I have surgery? Did I trip and sprain? Is there something that I don't think it's my hormones, and I'm a pretty mellow guy, a woman, and so I don't know if I'm toxic, but the question doesn't really hit me. But I did have this car accident, or I did trip on the tennis court. And so the fifth thing is, one could say, I think where to start is, my PCP, my ortho, but should I see a chiropractor? Should I see an acupuncturist? Should I take some herbs? Is there something that, even though I'm over the acute process, that I need to help my tissue repair in a way that I haven't? Like, what else does my body physically need as a starting point? And do I need to create safety and regulation? Do I need to breathe and slow down? Do I need to improve sleep? Six, maybe we could say, is my nervous system not getting replenished? Am I either not sleeping long enough? The quality of my sleep's not enough. That could be a big starting point. It is for older people, not people in their 20s, 30s, but you want to get people in their 70s and 80s, excuse me, to have better memory. I'm doing a lot of teaching about the top 10 things that cause cognitive decline. There isn't effective improving people's memory unless you're helping them with sleep. That's an oxymoron. You've got to help them with sleep. Then you can do a lot with Alzheimer's and dementias and Parkinson's and other kinds of things. So there are key systems to look at regarding the gut, ingestion, digestion, assimilation, the liver. Do I support detox pathways? There's a forest in a bottle formula to help my microbiome. There's a forest in the bottle formula to help my liver. There's something to make sure that what does it mean to reduce my toxic burden? Should I have less tuna fish? Should I have less swordfish? That's different than taking the right herb. So start with one, even if two or three might be true, and you don't want to hire a coach. Start with one. Those are good questions. So the gut feeds the liver. We went over that. The liver influences the gut. It's a two-way arrow. And both depend on the nervous system. If your cortisol is doing the jig and it doesn't look like ballet to me, then it may be, oh, I don't know if I can meditate. Well, okay, you could dance. You don't have to sit on a cushion for 10 or 15 minutes. There are a lot of ways to upregulate the vagus and the parasympathetic nervous system. So practically, where to start? I'm saying the same thing in a number of different ways. Regulate the nervous system, maybe reduce interference, in decreasing inflammation, toxins, stress. 3, restore function, you know, get the forest in the bottle for microbiome, see what happens taking something for your gut. See if there's any other tissue repair that's really good. The body heals as a system, not as isolated parts. Now, that was a physical response of where to start. I will briefly say that those are the areas that I start on with most clients. And the ones that I don't, it's not necessarily that one or two, sleep, nervous system, digestion, liver, aren't relevant nutrient holes. You got, let's give you more of this for 2, 3, 6 months. It's not like they don't exist. There are some people where some emotional challenge, marriage, work, siblings, mother, father, dog died, something happened, where my assessment of their colitis, migraines, is where they need to start is to make room for grief. And where they need to start is to make room for fear. And where they need to make room is for how hurt they are about the wars going on in the world, or they need to somehow turn their hurt alchemically like a wizard. Not easy, but I know how to help them about what's happening to trees and animals and water and the earth and the way that people have lived for profit and accomplishment and buildings and architecture and art and theater and and somehow in the process have kind of disrespected the earth. And somebody might be really depressed because their dog died or they just went for a divorce. But when I speak to them, they're also really hurt about what's going on in the world and they don't know how to make sense of it. And as somebody who does a lot of healing work with herbs and food and everything we've gone over, I don't work with people energetically so that they can understand things that are a mystery that I don't understand. But I do appreciate, as somebody who's done a lot of work to try to metabolize, just like our liver and metabolizes estrogen and testosterone, we break things down and are able to integrate it in our body, or things are not broken down and now we're kind of overloaded because too much of that hormone from chicken or cheese or whatever. We humans can also be pretty overloaded by emotions that we haven't known how to metabolize, hurts and wounds and angers. And I don't tell people how to vote, and I don't tell people. I try not to shit on people. But for some people, Dr. Lara, where they need to start is I need to sit with them. I might read poetry to them. You know, I've written a couple of pieces of poetry I've sent you, and I might ask them to read something on healing. It takes maybe a minute or a minute and a half to read it, and I trust that the frequencies that they repeat will help them identify, express, most importantly, release something that's bound that maybe is affecting their breast cancer and their colitis and their asthma, but I don't think that's the place to start because they're already coming into me with, like an arm's length of vitamins that haven't worked. And maybe I think they're the wrong vitamins. They're not taking enough. And certainly they're not quality like Forest in a Bottle. But for some people, occasionally, I just want to be human with them. And I take my doctor hat off and I kind of put my shaman hat on, or after years of what? Put my healer hat on, and I might read something to them about the blessing inside sorrow, which I don't think I've ever sent to you, but I'll send it to you. Which is about releasing, and I might see them once a week for 2 or 3 weeks or once every other week. And then if they want, I can do, where do we start? How's your liver? How's your hormones? You know, do you need more zinc? Do you need more, fill in the blank? But that's for some people who, I don't think I need to be a rocket scientist, that the children around the world that are dying in a war, what they hear about mining, destroying forests, some people are hurt and or angry in a way that whatever therapies, whatever's going on with their priest, rabbi, minister, or therapist, they are there's energy stuck in their body that I might need to say, can I help you breathe through this? I might invite them. Can I use my hands? I don't needle people other than make jokes occasionally. So in the world of acupuncture, I know how to open up the flow of energy, but I don't use it with needles. But I'll end by saying the kind of work that you and I love to do with people, using formulas like forest in a bottle is we are multidimensional beings. We are a quadrinity. We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual beings. Are we primarily a physical person occasionally having spiritual experiences, or are we fundamentally, primarily spiritual beings walking around in a bodysuit and occasionally feeling sensations? You know, and for most of us, since most of us didn't grow up in Tibet with the Dalai Lama, most of us are working our way intellectually that I think we're maybe equal, except we don't live like we're equal mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I mean, we live like we're primarily physical. Don't put that knife on my arm. And we don't say sometimes, boy, I just watched the news. I feel like crying because we've learned how to insulate ourselves to function. No judgment, not like bad. So it's a long answer to things that we might share with Forest in the Bottle community that you write, that I write, things that we might offer people, because there are a lot of ways to start. There are a lot of places to start depending on someone's curiosity, someone's openness, and what they think is the lesson in front of them, not necessarily the symptom that's screaming the loudest, that they're most uncomfortable with. That certainly is something I need to perk up with. Where is your discomfort the most? But what's driving the discomfort, or maybe not driving it, keeping it in place, might not be what we need to address. Might not be. But that's part of the adventure of how can we do this so we're all having a good time with it? How can we do this so it's a gift to be in one another's life, to learn together, rather than this is hard.
Yeah. I mean, maybe to close this, we are here to really also emphasize that we want to really remember what Earth is giving us. And what you said, which is very beautiful, that plants are more like teachers. They can just naturally guide you when you don't know where you're going or what to do next. You can do these steps, these are beautiful. And then you can also just go into nature and be around nature, and nature will show you a path. You can connect to different herbs. The better the soil is where it comes from, the stronger the ecosystem where it comes from. Forest in a Bottle comes from a very special Maya land that is only treated with microorganisms without any chemicals. It's a very powerful, natural, fertile place, and to really be around that and be around in your daily life around that. And that will help you to guide you to remember who you truly are and use that beautiful energy. That's why this is called Force in the Bottle, because we're bringing out the energy to remember Earth and to remember what Earth can give us and what the forest can give us in a little bottle that you can just get wherever you are.
I
And
love
if
the
you
name,
want to, and yes.
Forest in the Bottle. It's so cute. It's great, but powerful and profound, not just cute.
Yes, and if you want to learn more about these things that we're sharing, we are going to open a beautiful space where we're also going to be live, and we're going to open workshops. So we are very excited about this to really share and be there for our community that is connecting to these truths and that really want to go deeper and activate their biggest level of productivity and authenticity and long life real attractiveness, not the plastic world that we were going in the last 100 years, maybe that is a little bit dystopian, but really understand how to regenerate your cellular structures in the most sustainable way. We are very excited about this.
Great. Awesome.